all the practice this week, I'm getting flawless at the Open, Sean. No more overlays over our face. I've become YouTubiquitous all over YouTube, the horse racing stuff.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't get used to you covering. I had a couple more seconds. I was ready to go.
Oh, you're ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. So, Sean, while we're in that little period where you see the introduction to what we're going to do, the preview screen, and then during the 30-second countdown is quickly socializing on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else to let you know that we're here. So tonight we are going to cover the San Juan Capistrano Stakes. I think it's race 11 at Santa Anita. And it's, I think, one of the longest graded races on turf in the United States, from what I read. Pretty long one. It's an interesting race. They start down a hill. They take usually most horse races are left turns. They take a little funky right turn, and then they make this big sweeping turn, and then they pretend like they're the old Oakland Raiders on the A's field. They cross over dirt and then get back on the grass and run around. So it's not really a horse race. It's an obstacle course.
Yeah. And you always wonder how that affects the horses, or what that feels like for the horses to go over dirt, if that confuses them or not.
Yeah, some of them you see, they don't like it. Like maybe they see their shadow. Maybe it's a funny step to them, and you could see some of them sometimes react funnily. So I do think it does have some impact on the race. But as always, we're going to get started a little bit with the history of the race, and then we'll move on to some race-related issues, some trends and that sort of stuff. So the San Capistrano Stakes, that was a tongue twister for me. Named after a city in California, San Juan Capistrano. It's a Catholic mission named Giovanni da Capistrano. I wonder where he was from. You'd think Italy? I would never guess. He founded a mission in 1776, a pretty important year in American history. And at one time, it was known for the sparrows returning every year to San Juan Capistrano. But apparently that's stopped since they renovated the mission. And there you can see what it looks like, in case you didn't know. I hope I got the right one. I'm sure if I didn't, folks from San Juan Capistrano will let us know. Hey, guys, you got that messed up, right?
Yeah.
And as always, when we talk about the race history, so this race goes back to 1935. So it's kind of an old race.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that old. And
no, I couldn't find. I saw that when it switched over to turf, but I didn't find exactly when. So 1935. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And for the first 4 years, it was run at 1 1/8 miles. And you see a pretty familiar name right there, right, Sean?
Oh, yeah, Seabiscuit.
Yeah. At the time, in 1937, set the 1 1/8 mile on dirt, because it was still on dirt then, track record in the 1937 San Juan Capistrano. So there is some legacy here, right? I didn't know about either.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in 1950, the race went from a mile and it slowly moved up. I think it was 1.5 miles in 1949, but it moved to today's distance in 1950. So they've been running 1 3/4 miles for, what is that now, 71 years?
Yeah.
That's an old race. And then 1954, the race moved. I have moved there. I have to work on my English a little bit, folks. That's why Microsoft underlines those things, but I made the edit live on air. So once in a while I can catch my mistakes. But it moved from dirt to turf. It started out as an unrated race, became a G1 in 1973. It stayed that way all the way to 2004, got downgraded to G2. And then in 2015, it was moved to its current level, which is a grade 3, which is what we have today. So if we look back at the last 10 years, we find some interesting trends. First of all, and I think this is good for horse players, Sean, only 3 out of the last 10 favorites actually won the race.
Yeah, and then on your next one, with the average winner paid $584, so it seems like maybe the second or third favorites being more consistent of the winner. Not too much of a price in these races. No,
not too much. There was one, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago that paid something like $24, $25, but you're right. Most of the other horses were pretty close to, they weren't the favorite, but they were the second or third favorite. Speaking of and then when we look at it as well, the posts really have, I think, an impact because of the odd difference. Only one of the 10 starters that won in the last 10 years started outside the 5 post. That was Juniper Pass. That was way back in 10 years ago. So if you look at the race post positions, you'll see that here the bulk of them really leave in gates 2, 3, and 4. Really 2 and 4. But if you focus on the horses on the inside 4, statistically speaking, you have the winner. I forgot to put the one in here. A couple live edits right on the screen. So, I mean, I think that this might play out this year again based upon the horses in the field and the way I see the rankings. I wouldn't even be surprised if my trifecta is 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, and the only way to break that streak of 1 out of 10 being outside the 5 would be for the 6 to win.
Yeah, that would be pretty unlikely. But even still, the 5's only got 1 out of 10 too. So.
Yeah.
And the post only has 1 out of 10. So statistically speaking, it's going to come from the 2. Mostly, I mean, 60% of them were the 2 or the 4. So it's and the 4 I think is the favorite. But according to this, the favorite doesn't win, so he probably finishes second. So stalkers and closers have won 7 of the last 10. Only 2 horses managed to go wire to wire, and I think that's what the favorite Acclimate's going to try to do, because I think that he is the speed in the race. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. He is the speed, but looking there is some numbers working against him besides the post position of number 4.
Mm-hmm. Well,
also there's we'll get into when we get to the 4, but I'm concerned about, even if he does get a clear lead, what he does with it.
Mm-hmm. And then, interestingly, 7 of the last 10 winners, but not the last 2, ran an Equibase speed figure above 100 in the start prior to the San Juan. Didn't necessarily win, but they put in a very strong effort in the race before. So I think you want to kind of look for horses that are on form. Looks like you want them to be in spots 2 or 4, and you want them to come off the pace. To me, that's the profile of a winner from what we've seen so far. You agree?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. Not sure if my picks fall into that, but
you'll find out, right? I mean, trends are only your friend until they're no longer a trend, and then a new trend starts.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we do every week, we also project out the pace, right? And looking at the projected pace, because it's 1 3/4 on this race, the first call is at the half mile. So according to the last 3 races, looking at their early and their 2 furlong and their 4 furlong pace figures, adding them up and then taking the average, this is what it'll look like when they hit the half mile marker, if things play out. Acclimate will be on the lead. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, we agree on that.
Ward and Jerry will be second.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah. The defending champion, Red King, will be third. Astronaut won't be in outer space. He'll be fourth, which is probably the ideal spot to be in. Number 1, Lure Him In, and Pillar Mountain will finish up the pack. So that's what they could look like. I don't know, after a half mile of 1 3/4 race, that there'll be, aside from Acclimate, I don't think there'll be more than maybe a horse's length between every other horse.
Yeah, I mean, in 6-horse field, you don't want them to get too far away, even if you are a deep closer. It's kind of what we talked about yesterday in the one race. It's hard when you're a dead closer to win in a 6-horse field, especially when you're looking at the sole. There's only going to be 1 horse out there in front.
Mm-hmm. It never really works out that way, but odds are there'll be just 1 out there. There always somebody decides to try something new in a race to throw that.
Yeah, and I would think
curveball in there.
If it's going to be one of the longer shots, the 1 or 6.
Yeah, I would go with that as well. That if, those 2 probably have to run a different race against the caliber in this field to go ahead and get in front of them, I would think. I think you probably agree with me on that.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get right to the race then. Let's go through each horse, and then at the end we'll make our picks. So let's start with horse number 1, Lure Him In.
So this one I actually found a little interesting, because when I first looked at this morning, I kind of, just tossed this horse right out. then I looked at him a little bit before we went on, and he started being intriguing to use. I'm not saying necessarily win, but partly because he's going to be close to the pace, more than Red King or Ward and Jerry. I think does have 5 place finishes as well, so he's not one for win, but he is one for second. And jockey and trainer Edwin Maldonado and Robert Hess Jr. actually have won 2 in a row, and I confirmed that they didn't win. They didn't race any tonight, so their streak of 2 in a row is still good. On March 20th, lost to Ward and Jerry by half a length and finished in front of Red King, and did run with no Lasix 2 starts ago, because where you have that again for this race.
Fun. The no Lasix handicapping angle.
So that was another thing. It's good when you look over it twice. I missed that this morning. I looked over it again and caught that. Yep, we're doing this whole thing with the no Lasix again.
Yeah, I look at this horse. He's got a decent Santa Anita record, 5 times out. He's run runner-up 3 times, finished third once. So 4 out of 5 on the board at Santa Anita. I mean, at 1 3/4 miles, he hasn't run the distance yet, but it's probably not that many horses on the planet that do. You did mention that you think that he has a good shot to be near the front. I suspect that that might be the case because he has 2 of the fastest. He ran 2 of the fastest opening quarters for the horses in this field last time out. So I think there's a good chance that Lure Him In is one of the horses that might decide to get after Acclimate. But so that's what I think he's likely to do. Let's look at horse number 2. That's Red King. As I mentioned, he is the defending champ. He won last year by 4 1/4 lengths, making easy work of the other, at that time, 7 horses in the field, which included Ward and Jerry. What are your thoughts on Red King's opportunity to repeat?
So he likes to close. He ran with no Lasix last start, finished third. Really hasn't been running all that well. He won 3 in a row, as you can see. They're a little far back, and then 4 starts in a row. He really hasn't competed too well. Those are against tough competition, though. So that's where he kind of separates himself. But I'm one of those, we've talked about this, I'm one of those that are more on form than level, So he's got a shot, but I think he's up against it closing in a 6-horse field. Too low of a price for me.
Too low of a price for you. Well, he is dropping in class, which I think is a positive. Did run a top one of the top 3 speed figures last time out. And the jockey trainer combo is really solid with Umberto Rispoli and Philip D'Amato, both of which are winning well over 20%. So that connections work there. I also like the fact that this horse recently, in the second start off a layoff, has improved markedly over the first start. So if that trend continues, I would think that he'll be better in his second race off of Lasix than he was in his first. And if his workouts are any indication since the last race, he did put in a bullet last time on the track on June 12th, the fastest of 17 at 5 furlongs. So I suspect he's sharp, and he's hit the board in 11 of 14 at Santa Anita. And he does have 1 win at the distance, as I mentioned last year, but he also has a third at the distance. So 1 3/4 miles is obviously not an issue for Red King. Let's take a look at number 3. Ward and Jerry is the second co-favorite at 5 and 2. This one's ridden by Flavian Pratt, one of the top jockeys probably on the planet right now. What do you think about Ward and Jerry's chances to take it home?
So I like the fact, obviously, 1 2 in a row. So he's kind of got that same style. But this horse, if you look back a couple, and I know that's probably why he ended up on the pace projection there a second, he can stay up close. So he should be closer than normal. I like 2 in a row. I like Flavian Pratt on it. 6 of 16 on Santa Anita's turf. This is a knock for you, and I'm sure you'll bring this up. He's never run without the Lasix. So we don't know how they're going to respond with that.
No need to bring it up now.
Yeah. So he is 8 years old now, but he has won 2 in a row. So I'm not concerned with that. He seems to be in form. It does seem, though, that when he does face tougher competition, he doesn't always show
up.
Yeah.
He's another horse, though, that has a really strong, as I mentioned, jockey and Flavian Pratt. And Mike Puppy is also a big winner at 22%. You did mention he's got a solid Santa Anita track record like that. He does have a top last race speed figure, and he's won 2 in a row. He's got some pretty solid late kick for this crew. So I think he could be, at least according to our, my analysis for the pace, a lot closer to the front than normal. So if he's got strong late pace figures, he's able to, it seems like he knows where the last couple of races, at least, knows where the wire is. So I think that Ward and Jerry, if the Lasix is not an issue, should be one of the primary contenders in this race to take on the favorite, who is Acclimate. This is the horse that's clearly going to get to the lead. There's no question about that, unless something funky goes on. And he's coming off the highest last race speed figure, and he's not the defending champion, but he's the defending champion. He won this race 2 years ago.
Yeah, and the fact that he's a lone pace in a 6-horse field, as we've talked before, usually I would jump all over this horse because 6-horse field, he's going to get the lead clear, or you think, how you say it never plays out that way.
Never.
Yeah, you think it does, and then it doesn't as soon as those gates open. But my concern is he's had clear leads, and he constantly seems to get nipped at the wire and finishes second. So, again, at 9-5, I'd be hesitant to use him on top.
Well, I don't think there's any question he's going to be out in the front. He's run the fastest quarter-mile fraction out of any of these horses for the last 10 races combined for all of them. He is taking a slight class drop from a grade 2 and to a grade 3, and in terms of purse. So I think that might be enough. Ricardo Gonzalez, though, a 10% winner, is not a high winning jockey. Only rode the horse once in the last 10 times, and that was last time out. Finished second by a head. One thing I'm a bit weary about is this horse took a year off, came back, ran one race, subsequently took off another couple of months, and now this will be his 6th start in a row. So I wonder if there might be some tired legs there. I did see a little dip in the late pace figures in his last start. So if he's a tired horse and ready for some time on the bench, he might need a big lead and just kind of hope that he can gasp for air and then kind of walk his way to the winner's circle and not get caught at the wire.
Yeah, and actually, you say about 6 races in a row. That last race was a huge performance too, and we always talk about that when they have a huge performance,
the bounce,
and they come up short or either just win, they don't do well that next start. So,
number 5 is Pillar Mountain. This is a horse you mentioned. You're looking for horses that are in form. He's in form. He's won 2 races in a row as the favorite. He's not going to be the favorite here, and I think this be Joe Bravo's first ride with this horse, but he's coming from Gulfstream Park, so horse is bringing his jockey.
Yeah, so I don't know how often Joe Bravo's run at Santa Anita. You don't see that name too much at Santa Anita. He has won 2 in a row, but I had a hard time using him. Never ran at Santa Anita, never ran without Lasix, and seems to kind of have the same running style. I mean, he might be closer to pace. He's one that we talked about. He might be a little closer, but he looks like he'll be in the back as well. I had a hard time using this horse.
Well,
but if Bravo did show up, I mean, I don't know if he has any more mounts on Saturday or not.
I don't know either. I didn't
know. Yeah.
I would imagine probably not, but he did get claimed after his last start in an optional, claiming $35,000 down at Gulfstream. So this is his first run around the track for Robert Hess. It's a 15% angle. It's not bad. 44% of the time in the money. That's livable, I think. Not great, but for a horse that's probably going to be long odds because, the public is not familiar with Joe Bravo at Santa Anita, as we mentioned, a horse that's never run there, so you don't know how his form will hold up. The 2 races might draw some attention. Strong late pace numbers at a long race, that could be a positive as well. But he has faced off against Red Knight before, and he finished 3rd by 3 1/4 lengths at Belmont at 1.5 miles. So he was, gaining a little ground, and the betting public thought to make him the favorite that day. So I think that's a positive. Did win his last 2 races by more than by 1 length. Again, those are pretty high winning angles. I just wonder if the step up in class is too much, change in track maybe a little bit much, flying across the country, new trainer. That's probably why they brought the jockey with him. But one thing I do see is that he did make up ground late in 9 of his last 10 starts. So if he's close to the pace, he should have some late charge and maybe find his way into the back end of the exacta and the trifecta. Possible.
Yeah, it's possible. We have been paying attention to that, though. Horses taking long trips, they have not been performing well lately at all. We don't know how long he's been there. He could have been there. I don't see no workouts at Santa Anita, so that's
not one. Not even one on the West Coast somewhere. So, yeah, and apparently handicappers don't travel well either. I've had my fair share of struggles in Royal Ascot. So maybe tomorrow is the final day. Tom and I will knock it out of the park. We'll be like Atlanta in the 4th quarter against the Sixers, man. We're just going to blow them out.
There you go. Yeah, make up all the money.
That's right, baby. And then finally, Astronaut, the 6 horse. This horse is making its 5th start off a break. Since it's come back in 2021, has run 4 very strong quality races, not beaten by more than a length, with a win in 3 seconds. So at the wire, he's there. And I suspect this is a horse that likely benefits from going 1 3/4 miles.
Yeah, and I think might be the one that's running right behind Acclimate. So if the pace ain't too strong and Acclimate comes back to him, he could be there. Victor Espinoza, John Sheriff. Espinoza's running okay right now. He's still, finding himself after having off so long with the injury and stuff. He has finished in the exact in all 4 Santa Anita starts, but 3 of them are seconds, and another one that never ran without Lasix.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting to me is you look at this name right here, 2 out of the last 3 starts, Flavian Pratt, for whatever reason, decides not to ride Astronaut. And I think, what was he on, Ward and Jerry? Is that right?
Ward and Jerry, and that's why, he's run Ward and Jerry his last 3 races, and then he had off 2 and then ran 3 before that. So 6 out of 8 for Ward and Jerry he's run. So he's going to stick with that horse.
The couple things that I like about Astronaut, obviously 4 quality starts in a row is just, that's something, horse that's in good form, probably good form, but will need to step up his form if he plans on winning this race. He does have, according to the pedigree rankings, the top pedigree. So he has the opportunity to make it happen if he can live up to his bloodlines. And he is one of the horses that's run some of the fastest opening fractions in this field. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the tail of Acclimate. I would not be at all surprised if that's how Victor Espinosa plans on trying to take this race. But unfortunately for he and John Sheriffs, they're yet to win in 2. So they haven't really been clicking, but it's not fair to say that because they've only really raced together twice so far this year.
Yeah, and another interesting thing, we've talked about the 1 and 6, and we've liked some things, and they're going to be 8-1 morning line, which ain't bad in a 6-horse field, is they're both 4-year-olds as well, while the other ones are starting to get up in age. Mm-hmm. Red King's 7 years old, Ward and Jerry's 8 years old, and they're starting to lose some of that form. So it's that old class versus the up-and-comers.
Yeah, well, that's, to me, that's an interesting thing too. And usually what happens in these 6-horse fields is there'll be 1 or 2 maybe heavy favorites. One of these horses, if I had to guess, and this just based upon running form, being the champion from 2 years ago, Acclimate being lone speed, is probably going to, in my opinion, attract the most money. Yeah. And I feel like he won't be 9-5. I feel like he might be 6-5.
Yeah, that's exactly what came to my head when you said that. So that's a good price.
So the question then is Ward and Jerry or Red King, the 2nd horse?
And they're not going to be far off the morning line. I would say probably one's going to be 3-1 and one's going to be 5-2.
Well, I would think that Ward and Jerry is going to get the 2nd most money simply because Flavian Pratt's in the irons. He's the best jockey there right now. So he's going to attract money. The horse's record at Santa Anita is going to attract money. So I think he'll be the second horse. And usually what happens in these 4-horse fields is the second horse pulls some money in too. So I think Warden Jerry's likely to be like 2-1.
Yeah. And then Red King 3-1.
Yeah, probably he'll go up maybe 3-1, 7-2. Every other horse, I think, then becomes an overlay for the most part. I don't see the 1 or the 6 unless there's some inside information going off at 8-1.
Yeah, probably double digits.
Yeah, I think both of them will be double digits. So the question is, which one of those horses can fill in the back end of your exacta or trifecta in what's probably going to be a race to form, but at least somewhat try to help you increase that bankroll at the end of when it goes official.
Yeah, so now I don't know about you, and we're going to go into the picks, but I'd prefer the 8-1 over the 6-1 on the 5 because of all the knocks we were talking about with the 5.
Probably. I would agree with you. I think that, the Pillar Mountain. Yeah. I do think the 8-1s, I think he'll be higher too, because like I said, the lack of knowledge of Joe Bravo at the track. So first time starter making I think the biggest move up in class out of all these horses. So there's a lot of answers that questions this horse has to answer if it wants to be the winner. So now it's the time that everybody wants to see. Who are you picking and in what order?
I'm going to go Warden Jerry on top. I like the fact that this horse can be closer to the pace than the 2. Pratt on turf. And when you get 6-horse fields, jockeys, and I'm big on jockeys anyway, but 6-horse field, it really doesn't matter. And I don't trust Acclimate up front, but I'm going to use him for second. So I'm going to go 3-4, 6-2.
3-4, 6-2. Well, we agree on the 4 horses. We just have a little bit of a different order. But I do agree with you. I have Warden Jerry. He's tried to win this race, I think, twice now. So this is his 3rd crack at it. 3rd time will be the charge for number 3, although the 3-hole post is only won once. So he's going to have to get over the post. And then I have Red King, last year's defending champion, followed by Acclimate, and then number 6, Astronaut. So I have 3, 2, 4, and 6. That's how I see them lining up. We'll find out when they go official tomorrow, race number 11 at Santa Anita. But before we get there, we have to take a quick mention to make sure you head over to the contests, enter those contests. Tomorrow's Belmont. I'll be commenting live on the Belmont race. I don't know if I'll have any company or not. And then we also, Sean, myself, Terry, and Tom, and jockey Chase Miller yesterday went over our pick 4s at Churchill Downs. You can find that on Horse Racing Radar as well as on our YouTube channel.
Yep, and that's the one I'm due. So take a look at my picks, maybe add a horse or 2 here or there, but I should be in good order for tomorrow.
Fantastic. Well, folks, that's it for this tonight's version, the San Juan Capistrano. We can't expect to be perfect, but you can say 100% you're prepared. And that's it for tonight, folks. Good luck at the races.